What's up, everybody? Welcome to a beta seminar on interpreting Daniel's visions. I'm just going to give you a basic understanding of end times theology, otherwise known as eschatology, a view on what is going to happen at the end of the world when Satan takes control of the world and then God shows up to take control of the world right back from him. He just destroys that kingdom and sets up the kingdom of Christ, which is going to last forever. There's going to be exciting times. There's certain signs to look forward to let us know that we're approaching that time, giving us certain wisdom to use while we're living in those times. So we'll discuss those today in the visions of Daniel. I hope it'll be profitable to you. Make sure to like, share, and subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. And don't go away. I'll be with you shortly. All right, if you want to join this seminar, you can click the link at the top of the comment section, and I'll bring you in here with me. You can have your own little box, and we'll talk about interpreting Daniel's vision. So if you're someone like Jamie Russell, this would be something it could be interesting for everybody because we disagree on those things. So anybody out there, you can join the seminar if you dare, because topics of tonight, are currently subject of great controversy. Okay. Dealing with the end of the world, a lot of people would try to say that like these things have already happened. There's nothing to worry about. Some people say we're raptured out before anything happens. The Bible teaches something quite different. The Bible teaches that we will actually have to go through this. It's a possibility of surviving, but we will have to go through these tribulations, the Antichrist and the false prophet and that stuff. So interpreting Daniel's visions. Let me make sure we're good in the comment section. Again, interpreting Daniel's visions. You have the restoration of the Jewish temple. See, it was built once under the reign of King Solomon, technically the third king of Israel, and then it was built again after Babylon destroyed it under the command of Cyrus the Great, king of Persia, and it lasted until it was refurbished by King Herod, and then the Messiah came, and then there was a Roman-Jewish war, and that was destroyed. In the future, there will be an erection of a third Jewish temple, and this will begin the end of the world. I truly believe that. So I want to give a history of world empires that have existed. According to the Bible, Daniel 5:31, Darius the Median took the kingdom about 62 years old, and so 62 years old when Darius the Median, or Persian, basically took the kingdom about 62 years old. So he takes it from Babylon, who was the first world empire. Every historical record differs on the fall of Babylon. You have Nabonidus that ran to the capital to hide after suffering a brutal loss to Cyrus the Great outside the capital. Babylon was taken by surprise in the absence of this said Nabonidus. Theory is that the capital was taken forcefully before the arrival of Cyrus. My personal opinion. It was taken forcefully before the arrival of Cyrus, and before Cyrus left, he placed Darius the Mede over Babylon, and Nabonidus arrived after Cyrus was spared by exile. But despite the technical difficulties in this, like Belshazzar, the Bible says, was left in charge during the king's absence, and that was when the city actually fell, and the kingdom was taken by Darius the Mede. So there was a ruler over the whole realm of Babylon placed by Cyrus before he left, named Gaburu, and I think that future archaeological discoveries will be able to reveal that that would be Darius the Mede. These different names are being used for him, probably because he has different offices and they require different names, maybe, I don't know, but the historical text does indicate Gaburu, someone that Cyrus had left as ruler of Babylon in his place. So anyways, the ram which thou sawest having two horns are the kings of Media and Persia. This is one of the visions that Daniel gets of a ram, and it has two horns, and it said, the Bible interpreting itself here is to say that those two horns actually they symbolize kings of Media and Persia. They symbolize the conquering of Babylon by Persia. Daniel 8:21, the rough goat is the king of Grecia, and the great horn that is between his eyes is the first king. So you have this goat that has a great horn between his eyes facing a ram, which has two horns, and that would be the division of Media and Persia, which is basically just, the Persian kingdom. It's divided into these two groups of people, reigns as one kingdom. So you have the Persia versus Greece. Greece will win. That first king would be, as we know, to be the greatest military leader of all time, and he symbolizes the Antichrist himself, the rough goat, the king of Grecia, Alexander the Great. these great beasts, which are four kings which shall arise out of the earth. Here again, we have a vision that Daniel sees, and this time it is of four beasts, and these are going to be four kings that rise out of the earth. Daniel 7:4, a lion with eagle's wings is given a heart of a man. Daniel 4:16, a man is given the heart of a beast. We know that man, that was given the heart of a beast is the king of Babylon. That's what the lion symbolizes. This first beast is the king of Babylon. The Bible is pretty clear on there. There's really good correlations to, Babylon and the beast that had hair like feathers and claws like birds. I mean, this is what Nebuchadnezzar, he actually literally began to grow very long nails and actually develop feathers. So it's strange, but it happened to this king of Babylon. And so he was, basically turned into a beast. And that's what the vision said. So it's obviously symbolizing Babylon. It's symbolizing the king of Babylon. You have a bear with three ribs in its mouth, and that is the three Persian capitals. So that bear represents Persia. The leopard represents the third one world government, which would be in the succession of these visions. That would be Greece, and it's also historical that these empires succeeded one another. But the empire of Greece, the Grecian Empire, after it fell, when Alexander the Great died, it divided basically into four divisions, which went in different geographical locations. Two of them would be in modern Turkey, the other ones in surrounding areas, maybe like Egypt. But Daniel 7:7 says, after this, I saw in the night visions, and behold, a fourth beast, dreadful and terrible and strong exceedingly. It had a great iron teeth, devoured and brake in pieces, stamped the residue with the feet of it, and it was diverse from all the beasts that were before it, and it had 10 horns. So what we see here is a lion, which is Babylon. We see a bear, which is Persia. We see a leopard, which is Greece. And then we see Rome, which is this strong, great iron teeth, this diverse beast. The fourth kingdom should be strong as iron, for as much as iron breaketh in pieces and subdueth all kings, and as iron that breaketh all these shall it break in pieces and bruise. So most powerful world government that's ever existed, other than like America today. We still use a lot of what they did, their practices for society. We have custom those to, basically any successful nation, uses the same basic methods of the Roman Empire. But the point is that you have this fourth kingdom, it's Rome, and Rome actually symbolizes the future one world government of the Antichrist. Daniel 2:43, it says that he sees actually a dream, Nebuchadnezzar, and it's interpreted by Daniel. So this is another one of his visions. He is given the interpretation by God, where the big image, the head of the image, is going to be Babylon, and then the breast and arms of silver is Persia. Greece is the belly and thighs of brass, and Rome is the legs of iron. But then you have the feet, which is a future new world order, a future one world government in the form of the Antichrist and the false prophet. They are actually using the strength of Rome, which still exists. It's been, their wealth and their power is carried on since its fall, when it divided, and then the greater portion went to Constantine. Well, that has actually just transversed through many political leaders' hands over the centuries, and it's still retained, I believe, the strength, the military power and wealth of Rome. We still have today, I believe America possesses it, but it says that, that the legs are going to be of iron, but then the feet would be of iron and clay. So you have that military strength and wealth of Rome, and it's going to be controlled by modern kings, and they are represented by the clay. I believe those to be Islamic kings. So Babylon, Persia, Greece, Rome, end times. And end times would be that clay. So those future kings, and those kings are 10, because it says here that it had 10 horns. in Daniel 7:7. So those would be those 10 kings. I believe those 10 kings are alive today, probably, at least that position to fill that spot, whatever it is of these 10 kings. Uh, you know, it's available. So 10 Islamic kings, I believe these to be. We'll get into that. So there was iron, clay, brass, silver, gold, broken in pieces together. This is, in the future when the kingdom of the Antichrist is destroyed by Jesus Christ. So you have an image, and then you have these 4 beasts, and they represent the same thing. They represent a future one world government of the Antichrist and false prophet. Legs of iron, his feet are part of iron and clay. I believe that these 10 kings, they come out of the Roman Empire in the last days. The strength, the people of the Roman Empire, they were just converted to a different religion, but they've always been, of a certain, like nationality. There's always been people living in that area. I guess they've been moved here and there from, over time, but Islamic nations now control those nations that Babylon controlled. Every nation that the prophets foretold in the Old Testament that would be destroyed in the last days are today Islamic. That's what the entire region is Islamic. So in the days of these kings, the Bible says that God is going to set up a kingdom which shall never be destroyed. And it's talking about the 10 kings that would be on the, on this beast here. Go back to this verse. It says that it stamped the residue with his feet. It says it was diverse from all the beasts before. It had 10 horns. So the beast is the Antichrist. The beast is the future New World Order. And, the Antichrist actually shares his power basically with 10 other kings. He removes 3, which is more technicalities in this prophecy. But basically, him and the 10 kings are going to rule the whole planet. That's what those 10 horns are. These 10 kings. And that, you also have 10 toes on the 10 clay toes there mixed with the iron feet. So you have the Holy Roman Empire, okay? And then you have the Ottoman Empire, which took over that. So all those people, they're now controlled by Islamic religious political leaders. So it's all been turned Muslim today. What before was Roman Catholic, you today have a Muslim religion. 70 weeks, Daniel 9:24. Let me make sure that nothing crazy has happened in the comment section. Looks like that's good. All right, then. "70 weeks are determined upon thy people, upon the holy city, to finish transgression, to make an end of sins, to make reconciliation for iniquity, to bring in everlasting righteousness." We know that the week, is symbolic. Each day in the week actually represents a year. You can get this from Ezekiel 4 and 6. You just apply, what God is doing here, where he tells Elijah to lay on his side for 430 days, bearing the sins of the children of iniquity. So he's literally going to lay on his side, and that's going to symbolize something. It's going to teach something when people ask him why he's laying on his side. Each day, represents a year of Israel going to suffer, from God. They're going to suffer for their sins. They're going to be like in some great plague or pestilence or something for that amount of years. So each day represents a year. You can use principles like this that God gives in other passages by other prophets, and simply use that, to interpret these things here, like the 70 weeks determined upon the people, upon the holy city, to finish the transgression, make an end of sins, make reconciliation for iniquity, to bring in everlasting righteousness. So the resurrection of the dead to the kingdom of Christ. So it says, "Now understand from the going forth of the commandment to restore and to build Jerusalem unto the Messiah the Prince shall be 7 weeks and 62 weeks." So 62 weeks, that means 62 weeks, which means that you would have 7 weeks to go, right? So The temple was actually built according to John 2:20 in 46 years. Jesus said he could raise it up in 3, so 46 plus 3 is 49. That could be that first week there, because 1 week is 7 days. 7 days, if each day represents a year, you can do the math there. 7 weeks, so 7 times 7, 49. That'll get you the first 49 years when the temple was built, and then you have 62 weeks after that, after it's built, and then after that, you come to the end of that, which should be a total of 7 weeks. You get to Messiah, and then he dies. Now, 434 plus 49 is not enough to fulfill 70 weeks. You still have one more. So you have 7 weeks, and then you have 62 weeks. You need one more week there to make a total of 70. 70 weeks are determined until the end, is what Daniel was told. All right. 7 weeks and 62 weeks are determined until the Messiah's death. So you add those two up, 62 and 7. 7 probably referring to the building of the temple, 69 years, 62 weeks, referring to the time in between after they built it and the arrival of Jesus Christ. And so that's 69 weeks. Now, Messiah dies, and you still have 1 week remaining, which was fulfilled by the 7-year Roman and Jewish war when the temple was destroyed, but it wasn't fulfilled in its entirety. Some of those details, and they're still to be fulfilled in the future under the Antichrist. So after 62 weeks, the Messiah will be cut off and have nothing. So now we're at 69 weeks here, because we've already 7 weeks have elapsed. 62 weeks after that, the Messiah is cut off. That puts us at 69 weeks. The people of the prince who is to come will destroy the city and the sanctuary, and its end will come with a flood. Even in the end, there will be war. Desolations are determined, speaking about the Roman-Jewish war, and also foreshadowing of the future war between the Antichrist and the Jews. Therefore, understand from the going forth of commandment to restore and build Jerusalem unto the Messiah, the prince, shall be 7 weeks and 62 weeks. So 7 plus 62 is 69. You still have 1 more week to be fulfilled after the Messiah dies and raises from the dead. You still have another week, which was fulfilled by the Roman-Jewish war. But because it wasn't fulfilled in its entirety, and we have the book of Revelation to put together with the book of Daniel, we know that this future week, will still, it will reoccur, but this time in its entirety, and not just a partial fulfillment, which is what happened with the Roman and Jewish war. So that 70th week has already happened, but not in its entirety. It's still coming in the future, despite what Jamie Russell would say. So don't listen to that guy. He's a Seventh-day Adventist. Anyways, probably isn't saved if he believes the garbage that Ellen White taught about salvation. It's not the basic plan of salvation. It is a false gospel. It's another gospel. It's a corruption of the gospel. So get a brain, Jamie Russell. But you're still welcome to come on the stream, and we can be respectful, because I still consider you to be a friend. I heard you explain how you think that you're saved. I think that you probably are saved. You're just in a wicked religion. I don't know why you would still be in there, but it doesn't matter. You're welcome here, and I love you. But let's continue. The commandment to rebuild is going to be the first thing that happens, for this 70 weeks. So there's going to be a commandment to rebuild, which was under Cyrus the Persian. Now, 49 years later, it's finished. So that eliminates the first 7 weeks. And then 434 years, which is 62 weeks, until Messiah arrives, and then he's put to death. And that leaves us with 1 more week to have a total of 70. He shall confirm the covenant with many for 1 week. In the midst of the week he shall cause the sacrifice and oblation to cease. For the overspreading of abominations he shall make it desolate, even until the consummation. So there we go. We have 1 more week, and this is going to be fulfilled by the Antichrist. It's going to destroy the 3rd Jewish temple, which is still yet to come. he'll get the building permit to erect it, and then he will destroy it. Probably get the building permit, and then you'll have the first 3.5 years of that final week. You'll have the first 3.5 years, and then the second 3.5 years will be the tribulation, the reign of the Antichrist. Now, 70 weeks are determined. It says you have 7 weeks, 62 weeks, 1 week remains. It says here in Daniel 9 that there's going to be a covenant for 1 week. So that's that 70th week. It's obvious. In the midst of the week, the sacrifice and oblation will cease. So it's going to destroy the temple. Obviously, that will obliterate any future animal sacrifices, because they have to have a temple to do it. That's the whole purpose of building the temple, so they can go back to the animal sacrifices. So when that happens, there's going to be an overspreading of abominations. He's going to erect an image there. I heard the man clothed in linen, which was upon the waters of the river, when he held up his right hand and his left hand unto heaven, and swear by him that liveth forever, that it shall be for a time, times and a half, when he shall have accomplished to scatter the power of the holy people, all these things shall be finished. So what is that talking about? A time, times and a half. When is the end of the world going to be complete? It says a time, times and a half, which is referring to a time, which is 1 year, times being 2 years, and a half, the dividing of a year. That means time 1 times, which is 2. Put those together, 2 plus 1 is 3.5, 3.5 years. So if you have one final week in the prophetic timeline, each day in the week representing a year, you have 7 years. In the midst of that week, is 3.5. So 3.5 plus 3.5 is a total of 7. So yes, we have a future 70th week. We have a future 7-year period, but it will be divided into 3.5 years each. So you probably get the temple built in the first 3.5 years, and in the second 3.5 years, he destroys it, sets up an image, and then World War III begins. But getting a little bit ahead. Daniel 7:25. Talking about the Antichrist. Let me get a drink of water and then check this comment section again. All right. He shall speak great words against the Most High, and shall wear out the saints of the Most High, and think to change times and laws, and they shall be given into his hand until the times, and the dividing of times. So that means 3.5 years. After 3.5 years is over, then Jesus is going to show up and end all of that. Now we know that times, and the dividing of time is actually going to be shortened, but basically, this is what's going to happen. The final 7 years is divided into 2 3.5 year periods. The woman we're given here is in Revelation 12:14. The woman was given 2 wings of a great eagle, that she might fly into the wilderness, into her place where she is nourished for a time, times, and half a time from the face of the serpent. That's 3.5 years while Satan is persecuting the world. Or, you could interpret this another way. The point is that it's a time, times, and a half time, which is also in the book of Daniel. So we know this is talking about a 3.5 year period of time. From the time that the daily sacrifice shall be taken away, and the abomination that maketh desolate set up, there shall be 1,290 days. Rome, that Roman Jewish war did not fulfill this. There was not an image set up. There's not some guy that took control of literally the entire planet, He didn't do a bunch of signs and miracles and wonders, and you didn't have the return of Christ to destroy it. So this hasn't happened yet. There is going to be an image set up after he destroys this future third Jewish temple, taking away the animal sacrifices. So you have 1,290 days, it says there. It's 3.5 years. So 3.5 years, You build the temple, the latter 3.5 years, it's destroyed. Revelation 12:6, 1,260 days, 42 months as mentioned in Revelation 13:5. So that's even more. So there's 3 different ways that you can look at this: 1,260 days, times and half time, and 42 months. And they're all given in the Bible to indicate a 3.5 year period of time. The last week is divided. You have 70 weeks, and that final week, is separated. You have it's actually separated into 3. You have 7 weeks, 62 weeks, and then 1 week. So 3.5 years until the desolation. You have the temple is built for the first 3.5 years, the basically peaceful reign of the Antichrist, and then he destroys that temple, breaks his covenant, and claims himself to be ruler of all nations. So Revelation reveals the end of this period as the consummation. At that time shall Michael stand up, the great prince, which standeth for the children of thy people, and there shall be a time of trouble, such as never was, since there was a nation, even to that same time. And at that time thy people shall be delivered, everyone that shall be found written in the book. Okay, so if you accept the basic plan of salvation, you put your faith in Christ, even though there's all of this trouble, if you end up dying, you are going to be restored. You're going to receive a resurrection of the dead into eternal life. Whereas if you were to choose to take the mark or not get saved before you were to die, you would go to hell. Summary of Daniel's visions. Daniel 9:24 through 27. In verse 24, you have 490 years that must elapse before the end, a total of 490. So a decree to rebuild the temple starts the clock until the Messiah. So remember that. 400 and so if you do 483, that would be the total number of years, prophetic years, that have elapsed. But we still have to have 7 more years in order to complete 490, even though it's already been partially fulfilled by the Roman-Jewish War. It still has to be fulfilled in its entirety. The decree to rebuild the temple will start that 3.5 years, I believe. And then, so you go to 483 years into the prophecy. The Messiah is murdered, and then the second temple is destroyed for the last week, for the final 7 years, which would equal 490. The Antichrist will do the same thing in this final 7-year period. He will fulfill it in its entirety. It's a dual prophecy here. So you have a restoration of the temple again, and then you have a destruction of the temple, just like in the Roman-Jewish War, except this time he builds up an image and he takes control of the entire planet. So if you start, the temple gets destroyed, okay, and that's 480, or that's 490 years, and now we're still waiting for that final 7 years to actually replay, okay? So it says, I heard a Holy One speaking in Daniel 8:13. And it's a certain one who was speaking, how long will the vision be concerning the daily sacrifice, the transgression of desolation, the giving of both the sanctuary and the host to be trampled underfoot? And of course, we know the answer is time, times and half time, which is 3.5 years. There's going to be a destruction of the temple and 3.5 years of tribulation. Arms shall stand on us part. They shall pollute the sanctuary of strength, take away the daily sacrifice, and place the abomination that maketh desolate. The temple has been destroyed, so it's been fulfilled partially, but no abomination of desolation. You have to have both of those, and then you have to have supernatural signs also that follow. So this is going to happen in a 3.5 year period of time. This great persecution, this great war that the Antichrist makes with the world who doesn't want to worship him, basically. So the Antichrist will spread abominations over the desolated temple. This is an image. When you therefore shall see the abomination of desolation, spoken of by Daniel the prophet, stand in the holy place, whoso readeth, let him understand. Jesus basically warns us to, when this big war starts, to try to go and have a self-sustaining geographical location that you can live in, away from basically society. You just need to hang out in the wilderness until Jesus comes back, if you can do that. Now, if you don't have the resources, you might have to be like put in prison. So it just depends on who you are and your situation. But there is a way out. There is things you can do to survive. If you don't end up surviving, though, as long as you're saved, you'll go to heaven. But it says, when you see the desolation of the temple, that's when the trouble will begin. That's when we have that final 3.5 years. So the restoration of the temple broadcasting, I believe, will begin the final 7 years of the human kingdom. That will begin the first 3.5 years when they announce that the temple is going to be built. So they're going to announce it. The permit is given. They will build it. They will go back to the animal sacrifices. And then by the end of 3.5 years, it's going to be destroyed. And then we'll enter into the latter 3.5 years. And that will complete the final 70th week in its entirety. It says, when you see Jerusalem compassed with armies, know that the desolation is nigh. What's going to happen is that, armies are going to surround Jerusalem, just like in the Roman Jewish War, and they're going to destroy the city and the people. So at that time, when all the people heard the sound of the cornet, flute, harp, sackle, psaltery, all kinds of music, all the people, the nations, languages fell down and worshipped the golden image that Nebuchadnezzar the king had set up. This is what Nebuchadnezzar, king of Babylon, had already done in the past. The same thing that the Antichrist is going to do in the future. Revelation 13 verses 14 and 15. Let me check and make sure the audio is good on this stream here. Yeah, I think it's good, but it may be a little choppy, actually. I think it's good, but it may be a little. Yeah, I think we're all right here. By the signs that it is allowed to work in the presence of the beast, deceives those who dwell on the earth, telling them to make an image for the beast that was wounded by the sword and yet lived. It was allowed to give breath to the image of the beast, that the image of the beast might even speak and might cause those who would not worship the image of the beast to be slain. If the beast speaks and you don't do what it says to bow down and worship, you get killed. Probably not by the beast itself. I don't know. It may be able to shoot you with a bullet, or I don't know what's happening here. Maybe you have a brain trip and it just presses a button and your head explodes. Whatever is happening here, this image that the Antichrist sets up, it starts to live and breathe. So this is different than any idol that has ever been made. This one comes to life, actually. Some kind of artificial thing here. Some AI creature here. The commissioners of the kingdom, this is what happened with the king of Babylon, and it's what's going to happen in the future under the reign of the Antichrist. All the commissioners of the kingdom, the prefects, satraps, high officials, governors have consulted together that the king should establish a statute and enforce an injunction that anyone who makes a petition to any god or man besides you, king, for 30 days should be cast into the lion's den. The dedication to the image will be the beginning of the end, I believe, when this is that final 3.5 years. This is when World War III begins. And Jesus said, him that is on the housetop to not go down into the house, neither enter therein to take anything out of his house, to remember Lot and his wife, how she looked back and became a pillar of salt. You do not want to be anywhere near society, basically, when all of this is going down. The Vatican City is actually an absolute monarchy. The Pope, I believe, will be the one responsible for raising this army for the Antichrist. He will unite the world in a one world religion, and nations today that are Islamic, he will gather together to unite with these supernatural signs and wonders he's going to perform, to unite them as a military, of Europe and Muslim nations will unite, and then they will control the entire world after that point. So the iron mixed with the clay toes, these 10 horns, 10 kings would be today Islamic, I believe. And the Pope will unite them together to establish the Antichrist as the ruler, whoever that would be. So the Jews must have a temple in order to sacrifice. So there's going to be a third temple. We know 2 have already been established. Now there's going to be a third. The broken covenant will be an agreement of peace between the Antichrist and the Jews, declared by a permit to rebuild. I believe there was some kind of agreement between the Jews and the Islamic nations will allow for a building permit so they can build this temple. But the Illuminati, the secret society behind it, has a plan to later destroy it and suddenly take control of the world by a surprise attack. So stage 1 of this is when the European and Islamic army will be destroyed. They will destroy the army of Israel, rather. So, the European and Islamic armies, just like you said, they're going to compass the city, just like Rome compassed the city of Jerusalem, back in the day, and they destroyed the temple. Same thing's going to happen. European Islamic armies completely surround Israel and destroy the city. Anybody that's in it, especially if you're Jewish, you're going to be gone. It's a complete genocide this time of all of them. So European and Islamic armies, they have surrounded Israel, and they've completely decimated them, and now they're demanding everybody else, all the other nations in the world, to worship this image and to become a part of the New World Order. The European and Islamic nations will have time to build a statue and make a dedication to it, probably before any war begins, obviously. So they're going to destroy the Jews first, build the statue, and then they're going to make a call to the other nations to come and worship it. And it'll be a dedication, just like in the days of Nebuchadnezzar, king of Babylon. Any nation that refuses to come to the dedication will be conquered. And then stage 4, all citizens receive a mark giving them permission to buy or sell. So a new economy is established once the Antichrist, as it begins to take over different nations. This economy is directly enforced. And so anybody who doesn't take the mark, they get imprisoned. So it doesn't matter if you're Christian or what, you're getting imprisoned. And this will help to actually exclude the people that are Christians, because that's his point, is to remove the seed of Christ. The 10 kings, they will fill the Antichrist with pride and use him as a tool to gain control of the world. Basically, the Pope is going to convince the 10 kings to use the Antichrist to control the world. So stage 5, the armies of the Antichrist will hunt for any refusing the mark, put them in prison, and they will be held until they're tried, found out to be Christians or unwilling to take the mark, and then publicly executed by beheading, according to Revelation 24, the souls of them that were beheaded for the witness of Jesus. And that is the form of capital punishment used by Islamic nations today. So it is not of a coincidence. The people of the prince will not unite with the Islamic nations until the time of the end, the Bible says. So there will not be a union of the European and Islamic nations until they feel that everything is set up right in order to do that. It's kind of like a game of chess. There are certain things that have to happen if you want to take control of the planet. It's not as simple. He's even going to have to kill a lot of people and make World War III happen in order to get these people on board. So it's not going to be easy. It doesn't matter who you are or what supernatural signs that you have. people have cultures and they have religions and the way that they grew up, and they're not just simply going to bow down to some sorcerer. So there's going to be a big war, but it will not happen. You won't have a peaceful union of Islamic nations and European nations allowing the Jews to build a permit and erect a third temple until the time of the end. We really don't know when that is. So, but we do know that that is going to be the start of it. And that's basically all that is left on the prophetic timeline. It's this final week, which this sign of the temple being built is the beginning of it, which hasn't happened yet. But the Jews have actually been in dispersion for over nearly 2,000 years since their temple was destroyed by the Romans, been living in other nations, mainly Poland, and they've been recently restored to that area. The United States helped them take that region, which didn't even belong to them at this point, and they think that they have the right to build a temple in one of the Muslims' most holiest places. And the Muslims are actually going to let them do that, but it's going to be in a deception to surprise attack them and then force other nations that are already doing business with Jerusalem, to get on board. So if you don't give the Antichrist your stuff, you're going to die. And that's the basic plan of the New World Order. A particular period of time is mentioned by Daniel 4 different times. It's called the time of the end. And that is what this is referring to. Because, if you want to get technical, the latter 3.5 years, not only is it the tribulation period, but it's also the wrath of God. So the first 75 days of it is the tribulation. And then the rest of it is actually God pouring out his wrath on the world, on the kingdom of the Antichrist and the false prophet. He's pouring out his wrath after that first 75 days, but we won't get into that. We might actually at the end. We'll go to the end of Daniel chapter 12 and cover that. So at that time shall Michael stand up, the great prince which standeth for the children of thy people, and there shall be a time of trouble such as never was since there was a nation, even at that same time, and at that time thy people shall be delivered, everyone that shall be found written in the book. Many of those who sleep in the dust of the earth shall awake, some to everlasting life, some to shame and everlasting contempt. This resurrection unto life is the end of that tribulation. So at the end of the tribulation, you're going to have a resurrection unto life. And then about 1,000 years after that, you'll have a resurrection unto damnation, where people will be thrown into a lake of fire. But the time of the end is what this is referring to, this tribulation period, which includes the wrath of God, this last 3.5 years. Before the end, people shall run to and fro, and knowledge shall be increased, is what it says in the book of Daniel about the end times. So there's going to be an increase of transportation and knowledge, which is obvious. Today, transportation and technology is great as it's ever been, probably in the history of humanity, but maybe not. But Daniel 12:4. Thou, O Daniel, shut up the words, seal the book, even to the time of the end. Many shall run to and fro, and knowledge shall be increased. This is one of the times that we're signs that we're getting closer to the end. Is an increase of transportation and technology, which is clearly abundant and advanced today. Most of the world has rejected their kings. The richest people in the world are Muslim kings, okay? And they're the only people who are actually still under a total monarchy, other than the Pope himself, which is technically king over the Vatican. He just doesn't use that power. But the Pope and the Muslims are the only people who are literally still kings. And the Bible talks of kings. So if you're going to take the Bible literally, you could only do that if you're talking about Muslim kings and you're talking about the Pope. So I believe the Pope will make a one world religion. He will do supernatural signs that are necessary, that is sufficient to convince the Muslim kings to convert. And then they will build a military, set up a plan, which involves destroying this temple. So the Jews remained dispersed for nearly 2,000 years, and today they are recognized as a nation, as people that descended from the tribe of Judah, since the time of Jesus. And they have Jerusalem as their capital. That's even more recent with Donald Trump, which I wish would come back into presidency, by the way. But after the division of Rome, Christianity spreads across the Middle East. A little bit of a history lesson here for you. Let me check the comment section. We're good on that. I got to keep getting a drink too because I'm talking so much throughout this. It's a lot of material to cover, but hopefully it's all being, you're able to comprehend it. I try to make it as simple as possible. We use a lot of scripture, so it's the best I can do here. Roman Christianity, okay? It's going to spread across the Middle East. When Rome divides, you have Constantinople in modern-day Turkey, in that region. This is where Rome is ruling from. The kingdom has been completely divided, and now we have a mix of pagan Rome with Christianity. And so the Romans will live with those natives in that region. And in the future, it's going to separate because the rise of Islam, the Ottoman Empire, will actually displace the Roman control and dissolve the entire Roman Empire and turn the entire region into a different religion, which will remain separated religiously but do business with the other nations. That's why you have the 10 kings. They are, they're really rich because they're doing business with other people, but they're not necessarily like getting married and like producing families. It's not like a family business. It is with them. They're not letting other cultures in. It's separated by religion. Is what this is referring to. The separation here. The clay is not mixing with the iron because it's a different religion. It's a religious group of people. I believe them to be Islamic. So you have Romans and they live with these natives, and you have a mix of this pagan Rome with Christianity. We know that today is Catholic. So you see Catholicism, you just think that, the time when Catholicism was developed was this period when Roman Catholics were living in the Middle East until the Ottoman Empire turned it all into Muslim. So the Antichrist will raise an army with the false prophet, which I believe to be the Pope. The Antichrist, I don't know who he is, some military leader, but he's going to destroy the temple for the erection of his image that will begin World War III. The false prophet, convincing the 10 kings to put the Antichrist in power. They destroy the Jewish temple, which is how they got in power. That's how they got that faction together, probably, is by making that building permit possible. And then from then, you just have the Pope working with these Islamic kings. And then they decide they're going to destroy that temple. They're going to raise up an image and make everybody come and worship it. That will be World War III, coming soon to a city near you. So stay in your Bible, stay in church, grow, so that you can be prepared when these times come. So the Bible says that we will go through them. The whole purpose of the Antichrist, destroy Christians. I don't know why he would take them out before it happens. Anyways, that's a debate that you can watch. I've had debates with Peter Lee Young. You can go to the list. I debated C.J. Cox on the Preacher of Rapture. So thank you so much for tuning in. God bless America. My name is Christopher Sylvius. Peace be upon you. I'm out.